How much money do you need to retire and never have to work again? Well, we've done the math for you, okay? Factoring in inflation, market returns, and real cost of living, we built a list that shows exactly how much you need to have saved by different ages, whether you want to stop working at 70, 60, 45, or even 30. This list doesn't just give you a target, it shows you how realistic your timeline is and what it'll actually take to get there. The earlier you want to stop working, the steeper the climb gets. But if you start soon enough, you might just end up closer to the finish line than you think. Welcome to Alux, the place where future billionaires come to get inspired. So at 70, your target is $250,000. Now, this is the minimum number that still lets you stop working at the latest semi-comfortable age. We reach this total using the 4% rule, a benchmark developed by financial planner William Bengen, which says that if you save up enough money, you can take out just 4% of it each year and your money should last for the rest of your life. Later, a group of college professors in Texas did their own research called the Trinity Study, and they found the same thing. So here's how it works. First, you gotta think about how much money you'll need each year when you stop working. So let's say $40,000. Second, you multiply that by 25 because withdrawing 4% each year means you need a savings total that's 25 times your yearly spending. Third, you invest your money in low-cost, diversified stock market funds. And fourth, once you hit your target, you can begin withdrawing 4% in the first year. This is $40,000. Each year after that, you increase your withdrawal slightly to keep up with inflation. Fidelity says that if you start saving at 25, your yearly savings should be 15%. At 30, it should be 18%, and 35, it should be 23%. Saving later ends up putting a lot more strain and stress on you. If you retire at 70 with $250,000, you wouldn't have much room to stretch, but the basics would be covered. You could rent a small home or live in paid-off housing in a quiet area. Groceries, electricity, and essentials would be manageable with careful planning. You'd be able to take short trips once or twice a year, mostly local and during off-peak times. In most countries, your healthcare would be handled through a state-sponsored program, but anything beyond the basics would need to be budgeted carefully. It's not a life of luxury, but it's stable. You wouldn't feel totally secure, but you wouldn't feel unsafe either. Every dollar would have a purpose, and there wouldn't be much left over. If you start saving at 65 years old, the numbers are steep. If we took the average 10% interest rate of the S&P 500 and adjusted it to 7% for inflation, then you would have to put away about $3,500 a month to reach that $250,000 by the age of 70. That's a huge chunk of income, and for most people, not possible without a major lifestyle shift or extra income source. Now compare that to starting at 25. You would only need to save about $66 a month to hit that same $250,000 by 70. That's the cost of one dinner out, and it quietly compounds in the background while you live your life. Even if you start at 45, you could get there by putting away $309 a month. It's heavier, yes, but still within reach if you're earning a steady income and willing to prioritize it. The later you start, the more of that work you have to do yourself. The earlier you start, the more the market does the heavy lifting for you. All right, moving on to retire at 60, your target has to be $500,000. At this point, you're not retiring early, but you're leaving the workforce before traditional retirement age. You'd still need your money to last for another 30 years, but you're close enough to state support systems like Social Security in the US or government pension somewhere else that you don't need to fund everything yourself. That monthly benefit might start around 62 or 65 depending on your country, and it fills part of the gap. With $500,000 saved, life becomes more manageable. You could afford a home that's comfortable, either owned or rented in a mid-priced area. You'd have the means to run a small car, eat well at home, and occasionally enjoy a meal out. You could take a trip once a year, visiting family, seeing new places, or just breaking the routine. You would still be mindful of your spending, but you wouldn't feel squeezed. There would be room to breathe. Healthcare, well, that would depend on where you live. In countries with public healthcare, this amount might stretch further. In places where coverage is private or limited, you'd still want to set money aside for insurance or out-of-pocket care. It's not luxury, but it's security, and that makes a huge difference. The main priority now is making sure your money lasts long enough, which is why starting early matters so much. Now, earlier we adjusted the annual returns for inflation. But in the FIRE method, which is the Financial Independence Retire Early movement, they use 10% nominal returns. It shows what's possible when you invest early and leave your money alone to grow. Even with these averages, though, you can see how much the annual compounded growth rate of the S&P 500 fluctuates. So when you're calculating this, it's better to be conservative with your numbers. The 10% is more motivating. The 7% is more realistic. You need to choose which number is more likely to light that spark for you. At 10%, starting at 25, you need $132 a month to reach your $500,000 target by 60. At 7%, that jumps to $278 a month. Start at 35, and it's $377 a month at 10%, or $617 a month at 7%. At 45, that gap gets even bigger, okay? $1,206 a month at 10% and $1,577 a month at 7%. Either way, the message is the same, okay? The earlier you start, the more the market handles it for you. The longer you wait, the more you have to carry. Now, we're going to be using the 7% calculation for the rest of this video, but the difference in those numbers shows you just how much impact the right investment can have. And if you're realizing you might need to earn some more or start something of your own just to hit these numbers, you're not wrong, okay? That's why we created the April 30-Day Business Challenge inside the Alux app. A full blueprint designed to help you start your own business and create a new stream of income. You'll learn how to validate your idea, attract high-value clients with personal branding, and build systems that help you scale. You'll be led by experts like Terry Rice, Claudia Miklaus, and Michael E. Gerber to guide you step by step, okay? This isn't just theory, it's a challenge, and the goal is simple. Build something that earns. Alux Premium members get full access, and right now you can too for just $19 a month. You've just got to download the Alux app and scan this QR code on screen. It's the smartest investment you'll make this year if your future depends on earning more. Because let's be honest, okay? If you want to retire early, you either need more time or more income. If you don't have time, you better start building your income now. All right, so moving on, let's see what our next target would be. To retire at 50, your target is $750,000. So at 50, you're still young enough to enjoy the freedom that comes with stepping back from work, but old enough to know that your money needs to work just as hard as you did. Retiring at this age means you'll need your savings to cover everything for the next 35 to 40 years, maybe even more. That includes housing, groceries, transport, healthcare, and every other expense, long before any state pension or social support kicks in. But with $750,000, you can live with a fair amount of stability. You could afford to own or rent a home in an average area, run a reliable car, and cover your day-to-day needs without stress. You could travel once a year, not luxury travel, but well-planned trips with some time to enjoy them. You can afford decent healthcare, but private care or out-of-pocket services would need to be chosen carefully. There's breathing room in this kind of life. You wouldn't feel rich, but you wouldn't feel constrained either. There's enough for life to feel enjoyable and predictable as long as you don't overspend or make any risky investment decisions. But here's the catch. Hitting this number depends heavily on when you start saving. If you start at 25, you're in the best position possible. You'd only need to invest $416 a month to hit $750,000 by 60. That is still a big number, but it gives you room to live normally, take breaks, and still get there because time and compounding are doing most of the work. And if it seems impossible on your current salary, you should know that people earning just $2,000 a month but living frugally have been able to do this. Start at 35, and now you're playing catch-up. You need to put away $926 a month, over $11,000 a year. That's doable for high earners or double-income households, but you'll feel it. You'd need to budget tightly and invest consistently. Start at 45, and it jumps to $2,366 a month. That's more than $28,000 a year, which means some serious lifestyle cuts if you're not already making six figures or more. The runway is shorter, and you can't afford to mess around. Starting to save at 50 when you're trying to retire and the pressure is real, okay, you'd have to invest $4,333 a month, over $50,000 a year. At that point, the window is closing. You need a very high income or some kind of windfall to make that happen. It's not impossible, but it's just not realistic for most people. The difference in monthly commitment is massive, and it's all because of when you start. Like we said, okay, if you start early enough, the market will do the heavy lifting for you. Now, to retire at 45, your target is $875,000. At this point, you're retiring 2 full decades ahead of most people. You won't have access to government pensions, Social Security, or subsidized healthcare in most countries for another 15 to 20 years, so everything comes out of your own pocket. But with $875,000 saved, you could afford a well-structured, independent life. You could live in a paid-off home or rent something modest in a peaceful area. You'd be able to handle bills, groceries, and everyday needs without stress. A reliable car, some travel once a year, and budget for hobbies or occasional splurges would be within reach. But it wouldn't be a passive lifestyle. No, you would have to be conscious of how you spend. You'd likely follow a strict withdrawal rate, around 3 to 4% annually, and let the rest of your money keep growing. That's $30,000 to $35,000 a year to live on if you want your money to last. You need to keep healthcare expenses in check and continue monitoring your investments. If you're disciplined, $875,000 gives you control and the opportunity to design your life on your terms. But there is no room for major mistakes. One bad financial decision or unexpected cost can knock you off course. If you start at 25, you'd need to invest $1,680 a month in a solid long-term fund like the total U.S. market index. That's a big commitment, nearly $20,000 a year, but not impossible if you're earning well and keeping your lifestyle lean. You're not living large, but you are living smart. Think no new car every few years, a modest apartment or home, travel that is budget conscious, not luxury, a social life that doesn't revolve around spending, and low to zero debt. You'd need to live like someone who's already financially free, not someone trying to look rich. Start at 35 and the pressure multiplies fast. Okay, you'd need to invest $5,055 a month. That's over $60,000 a year. That is a top-tier income just for investing, not living. Start at 40 and it's just not realistic anymore. You'd need to put away $12,222 a month for 5 years straight. That's over $146,000 a year, and that is just the investing part. Most people don't even earn that much, let alone save it. So at this point, we're drawing the line, okay? We're not going to calculate for later ages because the numbers don't lie. It stops being useful. Retiring at 45 is doable, but it demands early action, low expenses, and a clear plan. This isn't something you accidentally stumble into. It's something you build intentionally, year after year for decades, while most people are still trying to figure out how to manage their lifestyle creep. If you want the freedom that comes with an early exit from the working world, you have to build the runway years in advance. Now, on to retiring at 35. Your target is $1.25 million. This is where early retirement starts to look like a full life decision, not just a break from work. At 35, you could still have 50 plus years ahead of you, and if you're planning to live entirely off investments, you need to treat that money like your lifelong paycheck. With $1.25 million, you could reasonably withdraw around $45,000 to $50,000 a year, assuming strong investment performance and no major emergencies. That's enough to support a lean, intentional lifestyle, not extravagant, but not restricted either. You could live in a modest home that's fully paid off or rent in a low-cost area. Your groceries, basic bills, and a few hobbies would be covered. You could afford budget travel, maybe 1 or 2 trips a year, especially if you travel slowly or in off-season. If you're healthy and disciplined, your money could last indefinitely, but This life doesn't leave room for any lifestyle creep. That means no sudden jump to luxury apartments, high-end cars, or expensive routines just because you've hit your number. The success of retiring at 35, well, it depends less on how much you've saved and a lot more on how you stick to the kind of lifestyle that allowed you to save that in the first place. Healthcare is a key factor, too. In countries with public healthcare, this amount stretches further. In countries where healthcare is private and expensive, well, you'll need a clear plan for coverage, possibly one that's built into your withdrawal rate or involves a separate insurance. Let's say you want to walk away from work at 35 with $1.25 million invested. That's not early retirement. That's never needing a job again if you live modestly and invest wisely. But let's be real, okay? Hitting that number in just 10 years is not casual. If you start at 25 years old, you need to invest $7,222 every single month to get there. That's $86,664 a year just in investments alone, which means your income has to be way higher than that just to live. To make this happen, you need to live a life that looks, well, nothing like the average 20-something, okay? No expensive apartment in a trendy area, no brand new car, no shopping for fun, no dining out 5 nights a week, probably no kids, or at least not yet, a high-income, ideally tech, finance, or entrepreneurship career, very low overhead, and near zero debt, and absolutely no lifestyle inflation when your income goes up. This is the kind of goal that takes obsession, not just interest. You can't accidentally land yourself there. You have to design your entire life around it. But if you do, you get to live life on your own terms, while most people are just settling into their careers. You buy decades of your own time, not for leisure, but for freedom. To create, explore, build, and choose how you live without ever needing a paycheck ever again. It's not for everyone, but if you're the type to go all in early and block out the noise, it is possible. You've got to decide what matters more. Do you want to look rich now or be free forever? All right, so now that we've broken down how much money you actually need by each age to stop working, we want to leave you with one final idea, the kind that sticks with you longer than the numbers do. Most people don't quit because it's impossible. They quit because they didn't start early enough and then assume it's already too late. But what we've seen over and over again is that the math always gets easier the earlier you begin. Not just because of compound interest, but because of what it does to your identity. You stop thinking like someone who's stuck and start thinking like someone who's building. And once that switch flips, everything changes. You make different choices. You stop chasing every little luxury, and you start seeing freedom as the real flex. Retirement isn't about being old, it's about not being trapped. You can retire at 45, 65, or 85. You can semi-retire, rewire, reinvent. Okay, it does not matter. What matters is that you get to choose. And when you know that number and when you've seen what it takes, you can stop guessing and you can start moving. So here's the real takeaway from this entire video, okay? Freedom is not a fantasy. It is a formula. And the only thing standing between you and that number is when you decide to start. If this hits home for you, write the word freedom in the comments so we know who's really ready to claim it. And if you want a faster, smarter way to plan your money, time, and life, download the Alux app. It's not just a tool, it is your exit strategy. But if you're not ready for that just yet, no worries. Here's another video to keep you on track. We'll see you there.